There is a moment, quiet, almost invisible, when the hand of God begins to move. It does not arrive with trumpets or fire. It does not shake the earth or split the sea. Sometimes it moves through the most ordinary things: a king's wounded pride, a sleepless night, a name forgotten in a book. And from these small, unremarkable moments, God builds something that will outlast empires. This is that kind of story. It begins in the great city of Susa, capital of Persia, a city of marble and gold, of power and ceremony, the beating heart of the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. King Ahasuerus, known to history as Xerxes, sat on its throne. 127 provinces bowed before him, stretching from India to Ethiopia. His word was absolute, his reach was total. And in the third year of his reign, Xerxes decided the world needed to be reminded of that. He summoned everyone who mattered, nobles, princes, military commanders, governors, to his palace in Susa. For 180 days, 6 full months, he displayed the wealth and glory of his kingdom: gold, silver, tapestry, endless feasting. It was not celebration, it was proclamation. This is what I command, this is what I own. Look upon it and understand who I am. When those 6 months ended, he was still not finished. He opened the palace courtyards to every man in Susa, great and small, and held a 7-day banquet. The garden was draped in white and violet linen, hung by silver rings from marble pillars. Guests reclined on gold and silver couches. Wine, the finest in the empire, flowed without restriction. The king had given his servants a specific command: serve generously, and let every man drink as much as he wishes. Inside the palace, Queen Vashti held her own celebration for the women of the court. It was on the 7th day, when the wine had lifted the king's heart, that Xerxes made a decision he would regret. He sent his 7 royal chamberlains to the women's quarters with a command for the queen: bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing the royal crown, so that the nobles and all the people may look upon her beauty. The queen refused. She sent the chamberlains back without her. She would not come. In the Persian court, this was not a private disagreement between a husband and wife. This was a public act of defiance, witnessed, whispered about, impossible to ignore. At the height of his great display of power, the king's own queen had looked at his command and said, "No." Xerxes burned. He turned to his wise men, those who understood Persian law, and asked, "What is to be done according to the law with Queen Vashti, because she has not obeyed the command of King Ahasuerus?" One of the advisors, a man named Memucan, spoke for all of them. His concern was not simply the king's embarrassment. His concern was what this refusal would teach women across the entire empire. "Queen Vashti has done wrong," he said, "not only against the king, but against all the princes and all the peoples throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, and they will look with contempt on their husbands." His counsel was clear: remove Vashti permanently. Issue a royal decree, sealed, irrevocable, sent to every province in every language, that she would never again come before King Ahasuerus, and let her position be given to someone more worthy. The king agreed. The decree went out. Vashti was removed from the throne, and in the corridors of the palace, in the quiet of the women's quarters, a position sat empty, waiting. The advisors thought they had solved a political problem. They had no idea that God had just opened a door. Time passed. The king's anger cooled, and in the quiet that followed, he began to think about Vashti, what she had done and what he had done in response. His servants read the mood and moved. "Let a search be made," they proposed, "for beautiful young women throughout all the provinces. Let them be brought to Susa and placed in the harem under the care of Haggai. Let them undergo 12 months of preparation, and then let the one who pleases the king most become queen in Vashti's place." The king was pleased. The decree went out. Now, living within the citadel of Susa, there was a Jewish man named Mordecai, a descendant of Kish from the tribe of Benjamin, among the exiles carried from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. He occupied a quiet position at the king's gate. No great title, no great power, just faithful presence in the machinery of the empire. He had raised his cousin as his own daughter. Her name was Hadassah. In Persia, she was known by her Persian name, Esther. Her parents had died when she was young, and Mordecai had taken her in. He raised her, instructed her, and as she grew, the scripture describes her simply but completely. She had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. But what the story reveals, quietly and consistently, is that what made Esther extraordinary was never merely her appearance. It was the quality of who she was on the inside, her grace, her wisdom, her willingness to listen and obey, even when obedience cost her something. When the search reached Susa, Esther was among those gathered and brought to the palace. Before she left, Mordecai gave her careful instructions. "Tell no one that you are Jewish. Do not reveal your people or your family." In a foreign court, in a pagan empire that had no reason to value the God of Israel. Stay hidden, Esther obeyed. She was placed under the care of Haggai, the keeper of the women, and immediately something remarkable happened. The scripture records it plainly. Esther won favor in Haggai's sight. He was drawn to her, not because she flattered him or maneuvered for position, but simply by who she was. He gave her the best beauty treatments, the best food, 7 chosen maids, and the finest rooms in the harem. He gave her everything she needed. For 12 months, the women prepared. 6 months with oil of myrrh, 6 months with perfumes and beauty treatments. When each woman's turn came to appear before the king, she could take with her whatever she chose from the harem. Whatever she believed would help her win his favor. When Esther's turn came, she asked for nothing beyond what Haggai recommended. No strategy, no grasping, just trust. She was brought to King Xerxes in the royal palace, and the king loved Esther more than all the other women. She won grace and favor in his sight more than all the other young women. He placed the royal crown on her head. She became queen in place of Vashti. A banquet was held in Esther's honor. A holiday was proclaimed. Gifts were given generously across the empire, and in the middle of all that celebration, in the middle of all that royal splendor, no one knew. Not one person in that palace knew that behind the crown and the silk robes was a Jewish orphan from exile, that the woman now seated as Queen of Persia was one of the very people a future decree would attempt to destroy. God had placed her there, and no one saw it coming. Mordecai continued his habit of sitting at the king's gate each day, watching, waiting, staying close to what was happening in the palace and close to Esther, even now that she was queen. One day, sitting in his usual place, he heard something that stopped him cold. 2 of the king's officers, Bigthan and Teresh, gatekeepers who guarded the entrance to the palace, were speaking in low, angry tones. They had formed a plan. They were going to assassinate King Xerxes. Mordecai heard every word. He did not hesitate. He sent the information immediately to Queen Esther. Esther took the report directly to the king, making sure to tell him clearly.
This information comes from Mordecai.
The matter was investigated. The guards were found guilty. Bigthan and Teresh were both hanged. The king's life had been saved, and Mordecai's role in saving it was recorded in the Book of the Chronicles, the official royal record, in the king's presence. Then, nothing. No reward, no ceremony, no promotion, no gift. Just a name in a book, ink on a page. But God was watching, and God does not forget what he has written. The name was in the book. and the night was coming when that book would be opened at exactly the right page. After these things, King Xerxes elevated a man named Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, above all the other nobles in the court. The king commanded that everyone at the palace gate should bow before Haman and give him honor. Everyone obeyed, everyone except Mordecai. Day after day the servants pressed him. "Why do you disobey the king's command? Why do you refuse to bow?" He told them he was a Jew. They reported it to Haman. When Haman saw for himself Mordecai standing upright, unmoved, refusing to lower himself, he was filled with fury. But killing only Mordecai seemed too small. He wanted an entire people removed from the earth. He cast lots, Purim, to find the most favorable day. The lots fell on the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, nearly a year away. Then he went to the king.
"There is a certain people, scattered throughout all the province of your kingdom. Their laws are different, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not to your profit to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let it be decreed that they be destroyed. I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the royal treasury."
Xerxes barely paused. He took the signet ring from his own hand and gave it to Haman.
"Keep the money. Do with those people as you see fit."
The decree was written, sealed with the king's ring, and sent to every governor across all 127 provinces in every language. The message was absolute. On the 13th day of the 12th month, every Jewish man, woman, and child was to be killed, annihilated, their property taken. The couriers rode out. Haman and the king sat down together to drink, and the city of Susa was thrown into confusion. When Mordecai understood the full weight of what had been decreed, he tore his clothes.
My children!
He dressed in sackcloth and ashes and went through the city, crying out with a loud and bitter cry. Across every province where the decree had reached, the Jewish people mourned, fasted, and wept. Esther was deeply distressed. She sent clothes to Mordecai, but he refused them. Instead, he sent her a copy of the decree itself, along with a message. "Go to the king. Plead for mercy on behalf of your people."
All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king in the inner court without being summoned, there is one law. That person shall be put to death, unless the king holds out his golden scepter. And I have not been called to come to the king these 30 days.
Mordecai's answer came back.
"Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape, any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this?"
These words changed something in Esther. The danger was real. But Mordecai was right. She had not ended up in this palace by accident. She had a choice. She chose faithfulness.
Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish.
Mordecai went. He did everything Esther had asked, and for 3 days Esther fasted. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and walked to the inner court of the palace. She stood at the entrance to the king's hall. The throne was visible from where she stood. Xerxes sat on it, dressed in his royal robes, looking out across the court. He saw her standing there, and he held out the golden scepter toward her. She could approach. She was safe. Esther walked forward and touched the tip of the scepter. The king asked what she wanted. Even to the half of his kingdom it would be given. She did not answer directly, not yet. She invited the king and Haman to a feast she had prepared that same day. Xerxes gave the order immediately, and they came. At the banquet, the king asked her again what her petition was, and again Esther held back. She asked only that the king and Haman return tomorrow for a second feast, and promised that tomorrow she would give her answer. She was not stalling out of fear. The right moment had not yet arrived. God was still arranging things, and the most important arrangement of all had not yet happened. Haman left that banquet in high spirits, but then he passed through the king's gate, and there was Mordecai, standing, not bowing, every good feeling drained away. He went home, gathered his wife Zeresh and his friends, and after listing all his honors, admitted that none of it felt like anything as long as Mordecai the Jew sat at the king's gate. Zeresh told him to build a gallows 50 cubits high and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai hanged on it. The advice pleased Haman. He ordered the gallows built that night. But that same night, the king could not sleep. He called his servants to bring the book of the Chronicles and read it to him. As they read, they came to the entry about Mordecai, who had reported the plot against the king and saved his life. The king asked what honor had been given to Mordecai for this. His servants answered, "Nothing." At that very moment, Haman arrived at the palace. The king had him brought in at once and asked him what should be done for a man the king wished to honor. Certain the king meant him, Haman described the greatest honor imaginable: royal robes, the king's own horse, a public procession through the city square with a herald proclaiming his glory.
Hurry, do all of this for Mordecai the Jew who sits at the king's gate. Leave out nothing.
Haman had no choice. He led Mordecai through the city. When it was over, he rushed home, devastated. His wife told him simply, "If Mordecai is of Jewish origin, you will not overcome him. You will surely fall before him." While she was still speaking, the king's servants arrived. It was time for Esther's banquet. The king and Haman came to drink wine with Queen Esther. For the second time, the king asked her what her petition was. Even to the half of his kingdom it would be fulfilled. Esther had waited. She had fasted. She had prayed. The moment was here. She spoke.
If I have found favor in your sight, O king, let my life be given me as my petition, and my people as my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I would have kept silent. But what is being done to us is not slavery. It is death.
The king demanded to know who had dared to do this. Esther looked across the table and pointed. A foe and enemy, this wicked Haman. The air in the room changed completely. Xerxes rose and walked into the garden. Haman, seeing that his fate was sealed, threw himself at the couch where Esther was reclining, begging for his life. At that moment, the king returned. He saw Haman collapsed across the queen's couch, and his fury broke completely. The guard seized Haman. A servant named Harbona pointed out that the gallows Haman had built for Mordecai was standing at his own house, 50 cubits high. The king gave one word, "Hang him on it," and so they did. On the very gallows Haman had built for Mordecai, Haman himself was hanged, and the fury of the king was satisfied. That same day, the king gave Queen Esther the entire estate of Haman. Mordecai was brought before the king, and the king placed his signet ring on Mordecai's finger. Esther appointed Mordecai over everything Haman had owned. But the threat was not over. Haman was dead, but his decree was alive, sealed with the king's ring. In the hands of every governor across all 127 provinces, and in Persia, a law sealed with the king's ring could not be cancelled. The date was still on the calendar, the 13th day of the 12th month, still a death sentence for every Jewish person in the empire. Esther went before the king again. She fell at his feet and wept. The king held out the golden scepter. She rose and pleaded with him to revoke the letters Haman had written to destroy her people. How could she bear to see the destruction of her kindred? The king told Esther and Mordecai to write as they saw fit in his name and seal it with his ring. A sealed edict could not be revoked, but they could write something to counter it. Mordecai summoned the royal scribes. A new decree was written. The Jews in every city had the right to gather, defend their lives, and destroy any armed force that came against them, sealed with the king's ring, sent urgently to all 127 provinces in every language. Where there had been mourning, there was now light. Where there had been grief, there was gladness. Many of the peoples of the land sided with the Jewish people because they saw what God had done. The 13th day of the 12th month arrived, the very day Haman had selected by casting lots, the day he had inscribed into law as the date of destruction. It did not go the way Haman had planned. Haman was dead. His decree had been met with another decree, and the Jewish people, instead of waiting for death, rose up together, unified, protected by the king's own authority, and ready. Throughout all the provinces, the Jews struck down those who came against them. No one could stand before them. Fear of Mordecai had fallen on the officials and governors across the empire, and they actively helped the Jewish people. In the city of Susa itself, 800 men were killed. Among them were the 10 sons of Haman. When the king told Esther the numbers, he asked what more she requested. She asked that the Jews in Susa be allowed to act again the following day, and that the 10 sons of Haman be hanged on the gallows. The king commanded it. It was done. Across all the provinces of the empire, 75,000 enemies of the Jewish people were defeated over those days. And then the fighting stopped. The Jewish people did not take the plunder, though the decree had specifically granted them the right. This was not revenge-seeking profit. It was survival, and when survival was secured, they stopped. They rested, and then they celebrated. Mordecai wrote down everything that had happened. He sent letters to all the Jewish communities throughout the provinces, near and far, calling them to observe the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar every year, from that generation forward and to every generation after. These would be days of feasting and gladness, days of sending gifts of food to one another, days of giving generously to the poor, days of rest after the weight of what had been survived. The name of the celebration came from the word Pur, the lot that Haman had cast to select the date of destruction. The feast was called Purim, the very instrument Haman had used to plot the death of an entire people became the name of their annual celebration of survival. God had taken the thing that was meant to destroy and turned it into a name of joy. That is the kind of reversal this story is full of. Queen Esther herself confirmed the observance with her own written authority, along with Mordecai, to establish Purim for themselves and their descendants, that the days of grief would become days of joy, that the days of mourning would become days of celebration, that what had been set aside for death would be remembered forever as the occasion of life, year after year, generation after generation, even to this day. King Ahasuerus laid tribute on the land and on the coastlands of the sea, and all the acts of his power and might, along with the full account of the greatness of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him, were written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia. For Mordecai the Jew was second only to King Ahasuerus. He was great among the Jewish people and highly regarded by his many brothers. He sought the good of his people. He spoke peace to all his kindred. And Esther, the orphan from exile, the girl who had hidden her identity behind palace walls, the woman who had walked toward a king knowing she might not walk back, became one of the most remarkable figures in the history of her people, not because she was powerful, not because she sought recognition, but because when the moment required courage of her, she was willing to give everything she had. This is how God works, not always through the powerful, not always through the obvious, sometimes through an orphan who learned to trust, through a man who stayed faithful at a gate with no title and no reward, through a name written in a book that no one read for years, until the one night when it mattered most. Every reader of the Book of Esther eventually notices the same thing. God's name does not appear in it, not once. There is no prophet, no miracle, no burning bush, just ordinary people making choices, some wicked, some cowardly, some brave, some faithful. Inside the complicated, dangerous machinery of a pagan empire. And yet the fingerprints of God are on every single page. In the sleepless night of a king who could have slept but did not. In the favor shown to a young woman in a harem she never sought. In a name kept in a book for years, unrewarded, apparently forgotten, until the one night when the right servant read the right page. In the lots an enemy cast to plan destruction, which became the name of a feast. The God of Esther is not absent in the silence, he is working in it. Esther did not have certainty. She had a choice. She chose faithfulness over comfort, the lives of others over the safety of her own position. And God moved. There is a question Mordecai asked her that has echoed through centuries. Who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? That question belongs to you. Your placement is not accidental. The doors that have opened and the ones that have closed, the people in your life, the access you carry, the position you hold, none of it is random. God is purposeful about where he places his people. The God who placed a Jewish orphan on the throne of Persia has not finished writing your story. And perhaps, just perhaps, you are exactly where you are for such a time as this.
Enjoying these Bible stories? You're watching Kodjo Faith TV. We'd love to invite you to subscribe so you can continue discovering God's Word through every new story we share.
Your support helps us continue bringing the Bible to life through beautiful animation, allowing these stories to reach even more people.
And if you'd like to help this mission grow even further, we'd be delighted to welcome you to our website through the link in the description. Now let's continue the story.